Ramiro was 37 and lived a life defined by silence. Alone in Fairview, a small Midwestern town where time felt sluggish and people remembered faces better than names, he had learned to let the days pass unnoticed. Just a year earlier, this same house had been filled with laughter and tension, with every corner shared alongside someone who left more than just memories behind. Her name was Emily, and even in death, she seemed unwilling to leave. It all started at the town's harvest fair, colorful lights, the sweet scent of grilled corn in the air. Emily had appeared out of nowhere, dancing by herself near a stall selling fried pastries. She wore a red dress that clashed against the dusty street, her gaze unwavering. When Ramiro approached to crack a harmless joke, she answered without a smile, but with unsettling certainty, "I already knew you'd come." From that moment on, there was no turning back. The very next day, she showed up at his doorstep with 2 cups of coffee and a sentence that would echo in his mind for years. "I didn't ask if you wanted this, I came because I already belong in your life." For a while, he welcomed that intensity. It made him feel chosen. No one had ever given him that kind of attention, but that affection carried a shadow. Emily was possessive, unpredictable, obsessive. She claimed that real love was eternal, that some souls found each other and clung together, even beyond death. Ramiro brushed it off as romantic talk, pretty, but fudged. One night, he came home late from work. She was waiting in bed, phone in hand, eyes wide open. "I dreamed you kissed someone else," she whispered. "And if you ever dare to leave me, Ramiro, I swear I'll stay with you, even without a body." He chuckled nervously, hoping she would do the same. She didn't. With time, her words became cages, her outbursts more frequent, her control more subtle. But then came the sweetness again, handwritten notes, fresh cornbread because he once mentioned it in passing, embroidered handkerchiefs with his name stitched in. It was like living in a spiral, where affection and fear danced dangerously close. They stayed together for almost 2 years. Then, on a cursed curve outside his cousin's ranch, after a petty argument about hugging an ant, the car skidded. Ramiro survived with a gash over his eyebrow. Emily didn't. She died instantly, her face turned toward him, lips curved in a faint smile. After the quiet, sparsely attended funeral, Ramiro didn't cry. He felt relief. But with time, he realized Emily hadn't really left. And if you're someone who loves stories like this, subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments what's been your worst experience. Months passed as Ramiro avoided anyone who brought up Emily's name. Eventually, he felt it was time to try moving on. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but staying silent forever didn't feel like living. That's when he met Lauren, an elementary school teacher from the same town. She was the opposite of everything he had known, quiet, thoughtful, with a gentle voice that calmed everything around her. They met by chance at the Tuesday farmers market. Ramiro was staring at a squash, uncertain. Lauren chuckled and offered, "If you don't know how to pick one, you probably don't know how to cook it either." Her light joke cracked something open inside him. Maybe normalcy was still possible. After a few meetings, Lauren agreed to visit his home. It was a quiet afternoon. They made butternut squash soup, listened to soft piano music, talked about the weather, their jobs, how little they knew about one another. Lauren never asked about his past. She simply said the house felt heavy, like the air wasn't moving right. Ramiro blamed it on the age of the house, built by his grandfather. Thick walls, small windows, but deep down, he knew it wasn't the architecture. It was memory, a bond not fully severed with someone who, technically, no longer existed. Or so he wanted to believe. On the third night Lauren stayed over, everything changed. Ramiro woke with a jolt. Lauren was sitting upright in bed, drenched in sweat, trembling. Her eyes didn't blink. "There's someone here, Ramiro," she whispered. He tried to calm her, but before he could say a word, she added. She whispered in my ear. "A woman," she said. "You're not the last." Ramiro felt an icy chill crawl down his spine. He glanced at the clock. The numbers flickered. 2:46 a.m. The exact time of the accident. The exact time he woke up every night for no reason. He turned on the lamp and stepped into the hallway. Darkness filled every corner, but something felt off. The breeze wasn't coming from outside, it was flowing outward, from within the house. A light draft came from Emily's room, which hadn't been opened in months. Wrapped in a blanket, Lauren refused to go back to sleep. She apologized but said she had to leave. The next morning, she didn't reply to his messages. 2 days later, Ramiro received a text. "I'm sorry, but that house isn't for me. It feels occupied, and so do you." Then, she blocked him. That night, while washing his face, the bathroom mirror fogged up without cause. There was no hot water, no steam, yet right in the center of the glass, 4 words appeared, traced by a finger. "I already warned you." Ramiro stayed indoors for weeks, not out of sorrow, but from a strange mix of fear and surrender. He tried to tell himself what happened with Lauren had a rational explanation. Maybe it was stress, suggestion, a string of bad coincidences. But every night, as the clock neared 2:46, his body warned him of something his mind refused to accept. Eventually, he regained some strength and met Amanda. New in town, she worked at the civil registry office and carried a different kind of energy, joyful, grounded, with a nonsense tone that contrasted with the women he'd known before. They met by chance at a cafe. She was looking for directions. He offered to help. They ended up talking for hours. By their third outing, Amanda agreed to come over. Ramiro cleaned the house, thoroughly put away photos, changed the sheets, aired out the rooms. He wanted a fresh start. They cooked together, laughed, and ended the night with a bottle of wine. While sitting in the living room, something subtle yet undeniable happened. The rocking chair in the corner moved ever so slightly. Amanda noticed. "Is there a draft?" she asked. Ramiro shook his head. Everything was shut. He tried to joke, but inside, he knew it wasn't random. At 2:46, Amanda jolted awake, her eyes filled with tears, muttering incoherent words. Ramiro held her close, trying to soothe her. In a trembling voice, she whispered, "I don't know who she is, but she was here. She looked at me like I didn't belong." Ramiro didn't sleep the rest of the night. When Amanda left that morning, he knew she wouldn't come back, and he was right. She never replied again. When he searched her on social media, everything was gone, deleted. No one in town heard from her again. That same day, stepping into the bathroom, Ramiro found the mirror completely fogged. No hot water had been used, no steam, but there it was, written dead center. "The next one will suffer more." That message shattered him. There were no more excuses. Ramiro was not alone. He never had been since Emily died. She was still there in the silence, in the air, in everything unseen but deeply felt. And worse still, she wasn't just lingering, she was keeping others away. And the scariest part, she wasn't in a hurry to leave. After Amanda disappeared, Ramiro stopped seeking companionship, not out of sadness, but out of a primal sense of protection. He began to understand it wasn't only his suffering that mattered. The women who entered his life left carrying something nameless but heavy, something that pushed them to run. It was as if Emily spoke through the walls, setting conditions no one else could survive. Months passed without a single visitor, until he met Teresa, a widow, deeply spiritual, someone who believed every pain had a divine reason. They met at Sunday Mass. She greeted him warmly, like she didn't notice the weight he carried. They chatted in the plaza a few times, and one day, Ramiro invited her over for coffee. Teresa agreed. She said she wasn't afraid, that if there was something strange, she would feel it. That afternoon was calm. They spoke about faith, about loss, about how each person finds their own way through the emptiness. It seemed that, at last, Ramiro might be able to share his space without the past creeping in. But the house, once again, had other plans. While they chatted in the living room, the lights flickered 3 times. Then, without any apparent cause, one of the teacups cracked in Teresa's hand. It didn't fall. It didn't hit anything. The crack simply appeared, stretching from the rim to the center. She placed the cup on the table, pale, and turned toward the kitchen. "Ramiro, ... do you feel that?" she asked. He only nodded. There was no need to pretend anymore. "There's someone else here. She's not showing herself, but she's watching. It's a woman. She's angry." Ramiro tried to reply, but nothing came out. Behind Teresa, on the wall, a shadow doubled itself. 2 overlapping figures, one taller, one smaller but perfectly synchronized. One moved, the other followed. Teresa slowly turned her head, as if she saw it too. She stood up gently, picked up her purse, and said quietly, "This isn't my place, and you don't seem like the owner of this house either." After that, Ramiro never invited anyone over again. Not because he feared what might happen to them, but because, finally, he understood something. Emily wasn't waiting for him to move on. She was watching him, claiming him, and what once felt like grief had turned into something else, a form of control. The nights became predictable. At exactly 2:46, the radio would turn on by itself. The mattress beside him would dip slightly. The rocking chair creaked, as if someone were knitting in it. Ramiro stopped turning the lights off. He began to speak in a low voice, like someone was listening. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't ask for answers. He simply said, "I know you're here." And the house replied with its own routine, always the same, always at the same time. One uneventful night, no storm, no strange sounds. Ramiro woke up at 2:46 without reason, not from a dream, not from noise. He simply opened his eyes and felt the need to move. He walked silently through the house, not turning on any lights, guided by something he didn't fully understand. He stopped in front of the wardrobe that had once belonged to Emily. It had been sealed shut for over a year, closed by her absence. He turned the knob. The wood groaned, like it was protesting. Inside, everything was just as she had left it. The red dress from the fair still hung, a nearly empty perfume bottle, a few letters tied with ribbon, and in the back, wrapped in an embroidered cloth, was a notebook, not an ordinary one. Its cover was hard, wrapped in cracked rubber, with Emily's name handwritten across it. Ramiro sat on the bed, notebook in his hands. He hesitated to open it, but he did. The first few pages were ordinary memories, notes about special days, lyrics from songs, scattered thoughts. But as he read on, the handwriting began to shift. It became uneven, shaky. Words were crossed out. Obsessive phrases repeated themselves. "If you leave me, I'll return. If you forget my name, I'll scream it. If someone takes my place, I'll drag her away." He turned the pages with trembling hands. Every line felt like it had been written in desperation. Then he reached the last page. No paragraphs, just one phrase, written in bold capital letters, in darker ink. "If she's not for me, she's for no Dren one." Ramiro slammed the notebook shut. His heart thundered in his neck. As he stood, the bedroom mirror clear, all week was now fogged over. He stepped closer, wiped part of it with the back of his hand. In the center, another message, written with an unsteady finger. "You shouldn't have touched my things." The words faded slowly, as if dissolving into the glass. The silence in the house thickened. Ramiro felt a tingle at the back of his neck. No one was there, no wind, but something stirred in the air, not physically, but mentally. A certainty that sat just behind his thoughts. A voice not heard, but known. He didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the living room, a dim light on, watching the rocking chair shift slightly from time to time, as if following a rhythm only it understood. He no longer felt fear, not the old kind. What he felt now was acceptance, or fatigue. Like resisting Emily was pointless. The next day he returned the journal to its place. Same cloth, same shelf. He never opened it again. But since that moment, every time he walked past the wardrobe, he could swear he heard a soft breath from the other side of the door. Not constant, just once right when he was about to walk away. Ramiro began waking up sore. At first, he blamed it on sleeping on the couch or the cold air that crept in at night. But then the marks began to show. A thin red line appeared on the left side of his neck, exactly where Emily used to kiss him each morning. The next day, a faint bruise on the inside of his arm. Then, 2 fine scratches down his back. He went to the local clinic. The doctor checked him calmly. No infection, no fever, no serious inflammation. "He probably did this in your sleep," he said, barely interested. Ramiro didn't respond. How could he explain that each mark appeared precisely where someone else had once claimed him? How could he say he didn't feel sick, just not alone? The nights grew heavier. At exactly 2:46, the kitchen radio played the same song Emily used to hum while she cooked. Always the same, always at the same volume. Ramiro stopped turning it off. He just listened, in the dark, like it was part of a quiet agreement. One early morning, after a particularly tense night, he went to the supply market. When he returned to the car, the inside windows were completely fogged. It wasn't cold. There was no reason. He wiped the windshield with his sleeve. And there it was, a message written by an unseen finger. "You swore to me." Ramiro stepped back. He didn't understand. He had never made such a promise, but he'd heard those words so often from Emily's lips. He began to wonder if, in the middle of a kiss or during a whisper, he'd ever let out a soft, unconscious yes. Sometimes silence is a form of agreement. That night, he didn't eat. He sat in the kitchen, staring at the locked door of Emily's room. He felt something behind it, a presence not seen or heard, but pushing, a discomfort that came from inside himself. He tried to distract himself with TV, but the screen shut off by itself. The lamp flickered. In the bathroom, the mirror was fogged again. This time, no message, just the imprint of a hand, as if someone had pressed their palm against the glass from the other side. Ramiro ran his fingers over it, shaking. He wasn't crazy. These weren't dreams. It was her. Closer every day, more present every night, and now his body was starting to speak for him, as if it were being claimed from within. Not to die but to stay. It was Tuesday. Ramiro got up before sunrise. He hadn't slept, not from nightmares, but because something inside him wouldn't let him close his eyes. He ate without appetite, dressed without thinking, and grabbed his car keys without a destination. His feet, by habit or command, led him to the highway out of Fairview Street, to the curve where, more than a year ago, the car slid and Emily's life ended. He drove slowly. Mile 17's curve was etched in his memory. He remembered the sound of metal, glass, the dirt rising. He remembered the blood on his brow, the faint, inexplicable smile on her face, a smile he now understood as a goodbye, or maybe a promise fulfilled. He stopped the car, turned off the engine, got out awkwardly. The breeze was cold, though the weather didn't warrant it. No traffic, no birds, only the murmur of the wind blowing in the wrong direction. A soft gust brushed his face, and for a moment, he felt someone pass beside him. No one was there, but he heard her voice, low, as if rising from the ground. This was the end, but it could also be the beginning. Ramiro didn't answer. He sat by the roadside and stayed there nearly an hour. He didn't think of Emily as a person anymore, but as a space, a place he'd been pulled into. He no longer knew where memory ended and hallucination began, but he knew one thing. He'd crossed a point of no return. When he got home, it was past 5. He locked the door, turned off his phone, lowered the blinds, set the radio to volume 2, Millie's favorite, turned the rocker toward the window like she used to do while stitching, drew the curtain slightly and lit a candle in the hallway. That night, he didn't go to bed. He lay on the living room floor, flat on his back, and waited. At 2:46 sharp, the radio turned on, but this time, no music, just a soft humming like a distant moan. From the hallway, he heard barefoot steps, one, then another, slowly, like someone tiptoeing not to wake anyone. Ramiro sat up, stared into the dimness. No one there, but on the chair the cushion had sunk slightly, as if someone had just sat down. He didn't feel afraid. He wasn't sweating. He wasn't shaking. Just a strange calm, most absurd. He had gone back to the curve, opened the door, allowed the presence to find its way home. And now, Emily didn't need to force anything, because Ramiro was no longer running. Since that night, something in the house shifted. Not the furniture, not the sounds, but the sense that everything, finally, was in place. As if a cycle had closed, not one that frees, but one that traps. Ramiro stopped sleeping in the main bedroom. He preferred the couch or the floorways, within reach of the hallway, as if expecting someone to walk by. He no longer turned on lights at night, just kept a single low candle lit in the corner of the living room, like in the old wakes. Every night without fail, Emily's mattress creaked slightly in the locked room. He no longer tried to make sense of it. At exactly 2:46, like a clockwork ritual, the radio played a melody with no words, a tune she used to hum while sweeping the yard. Ramiro stayed still, listening, as if that was all he was meant to do. He stopped looking for work, stopped replying to messages. His world shrank to the dimensions of the house, to the silence he now shared with someone who wasn't alive, but hadn't left. He began speaking softly, not like someone losing their mind, but like someone coexisting. "I know you're here. Do you like how I arranged the chair? I haven't touched your things, don't worry." On one of those days that seemed to float outside the calendar, Ramiro pulled out the old photos he had stored away. Lourdes, Amanda, Teresa. He looked at each of them, one by one. He couldn't recall their voices or their gestures. Their faces had faded, blurred into fragments, fleeting presences. The only image that remained vivid in his mind was Emily. He could still picture her in the red dress, her hands dusted with flour, her fingers stained from thread, always stitching his name into fabric. He could hear her lopsided laugh, that strange mixture of sweetness and warning. He could smell her perfume before even opening the closet door. One night, he dreamt of her. They were in a house that wasn't his, a place without windows, a place where time didn't exist. Emily looked at him like she had at the beginning, with that expression that made him feel seen from the inside out. She stepped closer and said in a calm, slow voice, "Now you understand, don't you?" And yes, Ramiro understood. It wasn't about fear or curses. Emily had never wanted to frighten him. She simply refused to be forgotten. She had never really left. She'd only waited hidden him till he stopped resisting. He woke up with damp eyes. The left side of the bed was sunken. The scent of lavender filled the room, stronger than ever, but he didn't feel fear. He felt relief. For the first time, he wasn't pretending to live alone. He accepted it, and that, in a twisted way, brought him peace. While Ramiro sank deeper into his silent coexistence with Emily, hundreds of miles away in a town called Granger, another man was living something eerily similar. His name was Matthew. He was 39, and ever since the sudden death of his wife, April, nothing had been normal in his home. April had died of an aneurysm while ironing clothes in the living room. One moment she was fine, the next, she wasn't breathing. Matthew couldn't do anything. The burial was brief, filled with blank faces and empty words. From that day on, he began to feel something strange about the mirrors in the house. At first, he thought it was part of the grief. He would see his reflection and feel something missing. It took him a while to realize what was absent wasn't his image, was someone else's. Weeks passed, and Matthew met Julia, a nurse and friend of his cousin. She was warm, easy to talk to, with a very different energy from April. Their relationship unfolded naturally. Julia didn't ask many questions. She just wanted to be there. But on the third night she spent at his home, something broke. She came out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her head and paused in front of the large mirror in the hallway. She furrowed her brow. "Where am I?" she whispered. Matthew, puzzled, walked over, and then he saw it. He was reflected, but Julia wasn't. Where her image should have been, there was only emptiness, and farther back a silhouette, female still, almost transparent, a long white dress, hair cascading to the sides, a barely visible face. He tried to joke, said the mirror was old, had warps and blemishes. Julia smiled nervously, but never looked into that mirror again. That night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., not 2:46, like Ramiro's case, but always the same time in Granger, Matthew awoke to a sharp crack. It came from the mirror's frame. It vibrated, as if someone was pressing against it from the other side. He got up, approached it, and there was April, clearer than ever. She raised her hand and, with one finger, pointed toward the room where Julia slept, then pointed at herself, then at Matthew, as if saying, "Choose." Julia left that same week. No goodbyes, just a note. "She doesn't want me there. She watches me, and I know her name, even though no one told me." Matthew covered every mirror, tried to avoid them. It didn't help. Sometimes, passing a window, looking into a spoon, glancing at a puddle, he'd see April's reflection behind him, as if she had spread beyond the glass. Matthew never met Ramiro, but if their stories crossed, they would recognize themselves in the same sentence. It wasn't about ghosts or curses. It was about women who had once been promised to be the last, and they never forgot. Ramiro woke before the sun touched the hills. That morning had no particular purpose, but when he saw the chair turned toward the window, the radio playing at low volume, and the candle extinguished without having melted, he understood that nothing new needed to happen anymore. The decision had already been made. He went into the bathroom. On the mirror, clear without steam or moisture, he wrote one sentence with a black marker. "It's okay, Emily, I'm yours." Not as a plea, not as surrender, as an agreement. Then, he entered her room and put everything back in place. The bedspread folded into a triangle, the curtains slightly open, her hard-covered journal placed on the nightstand. He opened the windows for the first time in months, but the breeze didn't freshen the air. It simply filled the house with that familiar lavender scent, the same as always. That night, there was no radio, no footsteps, no lights turning on. Nothing creaked, only silence. A thick, absolute silence, as if the house had finally exhaled after holding its breath for so long. But Ramiro didn't feel alone. At exactly 2:46, he awoke to the soft sensation of weight over his body. Not pressure, not harm. A warm body settling beside him, an arm carefully wrapping round his waist, slow breathing against his neck, and a calm voice, low and steady, whispering in his ear. Now you understand. And yes, he understood. Emily never wanted revenge. She never meant harm. She only wanted to stay, to be remembered, to be part of something even after death. Dying hadn't stopped her. It only changed the way she inhabited the house, the way she made herself known. And when Ramiro stopped resisting, he opened the door entirely. In the days that followed, no one noticed anything strange. Those who saw him around town greeted him politely. They believed he was better, that he had finally moved on. That solitude had done him good. But inside the house, it was a different story. There were no more noises, because there didn't need to be. Emily was in every object. In the way the sheets smoothed themselves out, in the mirrors, which now reflected only what they wanted to, in the chair, no longer rocking, but always in a different spot, in the knives, perfectly aligned, in the pillow, with the same indentation every morning, and most of all, she was in him. Ramiro no longer spoke to anyone. He didn't go out. He didn't write. Sometimes, he just sat in the living room chair and stared at the curtains swaying with the wind. No one knew if he was waiting for something or someone, but those who passed by his window swore they saw two silhouettes, one taller, one thinner, always together, always still. And some neighbors, out of curiosity or fear, avoided looking directly into the bathroom mirror when they visited, because something told them, if they did, they might not be the only reflection looking back.